Welcome to the penultimate episode in our series with the Burnt Chef Project. I'm Cara, editor of the Staff Canteen, and over the past few weeks we've been talking live about mental health in hospitality across all sectors. We want to break down the stigma around mental health and get people to talk more openly, and also hopefully our guests can offer advice and inspiration to people so they can implement some improvements in their own workplace. If you have any questions, please do comment on this live post and we will ask as many as we can. So today I'm once again joined by Chris from the Burnt Chef Project, and our guest is Luke Holder from Hartnett Holder at Limewood Hotel. So hello both of you, and thank you for joining me.
Hi.
Hi.
There we go, we've got you both on screen now, brilliant. So before we get started, Luke, thank you for joining us. Before we get into the discussion points, can you just introduce yourself and tell us a bit about why you kind of wanted to be part of this live discussion?
Okay, so I'm Luke Holder. As mentioned, I'm partner in crime with Angela Hartnett at the Limewood Hotel at Hartnett Holder & Co. Coming into my 11th year there now. And why did we get involved? Well, I think I've been part of creating unfortunately bad mental well-being with my staff in the past. I think transitioning from a young cook into a head chef and seeing what effect that had on my team over the years. I've used to have an attitude of, people didn't like it, there's the door, see you later, and expected everybody to give up everything in in their life in order to to deliver food. And over the years, I started realizing, not many people wanted to work with me, or the turnover of staff was too high. And as a company, Robin Hudson, our chairman, had made a big push on staff retention a few years ago and what we could do to improve, the well-being of the team. And over the years, that developed into the mental health first aiders, which we, as a company, signed up, and we've got, I think, at least 4 or 5 mental aid first aiders within the business. And Shannon Harvey, who is one of the people team at the Pigs and Limewood, got on board with Chris at the Burnt Chef Project, and Chris and I think Chris has been working with James Golding, the director of the Pigs, the chef director of the Pigs. And we just feel that this is a really important thing for us as a company, us as individuals, and what the hospitality industry needed, because you start to see a real drop off of people having enough of a vision to see that this is a worthwhile industry once you start getting beyond your 24, 25, I'm single, I'm doing this, to starting to think, can I be a professional as well as having a family life, as well as, I know from my own personal experience, how many family gatherings have I missed and sacrificed over the years for, for the kitchen. And I think when I transitioned from sous chef to head chef, my expectation was everybody around me has to give up everything to be part of my team. And I think that since I've been head chefing within a hotel, I started realizing that this isn't just about food. You're managing people. You're affecting not just them as individuals and their confidence at the stove, but their life outside of work, their life, with their family, with their friends. And I think we had a couple of awful incidents early on. We had, in my sort of senior position, where I had a young chef die of a heroin overdose. I had another chef commit suicide. Not necessarily in the kitchen, but made me sort of really reassess, what my role was. Yes, creating food and doing all that is absolutely really important, but getting under the skin of the staff to get a better feeling for where they are, and who they are as people and what's going on in their lives really resonated, that I needed to do more in that area. And I think just over a period of time, all of these things have come together, the awareness of mental aid, mental first aid, mental well-being, the Burnt Chef projects, staff retention, all of these bits and pieces just started to come together. And I just think, you know, I remember growing up and I worked in London, and I remember thinking I never want to be treated as I never want to treat some of the chefs the way I've been treated as a chef coming through. And I think haven't always done that successfully, I must admit, you know, but I think I'm at a point now where it really resonates with me, the importance of being able to bring apprentices through all the way to head chefs and trying to change the stigma that's attached, maybe rightly so, I think, to a degree, to hospitality and what it takes to succeed in it.
So can you pinpoint when you realised that mental health was an issue in kitchens and the industry as a whole? Do you know when that kind of light bulb moment was for you?
The light bulb moment was we hired a chef to do the bakery through the night and do the chocolate work. So we had, you know, chocolate tray with petit fours. We used to make our own fresh breads, and he would start at midnight and leave at 8 in the morning. So my contact with him was really brief. You know, hello, good morning, see you, goodbye, whatever. And one day he just didn't turn up to work, and you know, made a few phone calls, and you know, we couldn't get hold of him. Went round to his house, you know, eventually got into his house, and his phone was on the bed. Basically, he went missing for 4 days. We eventually found him with the police. He was in hospital in Brighton, and he was from Belgium, and he ended up going back home. But a week later, he unfortunately committed suicide, and that moment really resonated with me, because I just thought, I didn't really know the guy, you know, like, we came in, we hired him, and he did the bread, and you know, he did chocolate, and it was all good. But I started realizing I was quite detached from my staff, you know, to just seeing them as people who come in and fulfill a role for me, rather than being part of my team and understanding them as individuals and as humans. And I think that, you know, I have a very loyal team now, you know, and a lot of the, you know, I've got 4 or 5 guys, this was over 10 years ago now that this incident happened. I've still got 4 or 5 guys who are still with me now, and I think it resonated with all of us that we needed to make more effort to pay attention to the subtle signs that are going off that things might not be right.
And did you think maybe back then that you didn't necessarily take any responsibility for, or even think about it really, rather than not taking it, but thinking about it?
You're obsessed with your own ego to put yourself on the map within the industry. You know, you put, you know, back then we were trying to, you know, go for a Michelin star. We were trying to, you know, it was all just about the food. You know, if you didn't, you know, some of the banter, you know, it's borderline disgraceful, because you sit there and you think, yeah, it's just about, you know, the food, and you know, but getting so irate about how someone can brimoise shallots or not do it successfully, and all of the, you know, that sort of male sort of chest beating, you know, I do more hours than you, my brimoise is better than yours, this, you know, and you don't really realize how that's affecting an individual when they go home at night. You know, you think it's fun to, you know, got into brimoise 5 kilo shallots and then put it all in the bin, and you know, and put him down for not having done it properly. You know, I certainly had that done to me, and I can remember how I felt like that. But what was ironic was when I got into that position of a head chef, I didn't quite take on board how I used to feel when that was done to me. Actually, I just reciprocated that sort of abuse to the staff underneath me, and I think it really made me think, you know, is the brimoise as important as this person's life? So, yeah, you know, and I think a lot of us, when we're coming through and we you know, young head chefs, you know, yes, they're dynamic on the stoves and they're great, but what have we done? You know, what has been our management development before we become or take that first head chef's position on? For me, very little, to be honest with you, particularly if it, you know, outside of, you know, the management was more make sure you're sorting out your food costs and the HACCP's done, or, you know, you're doing your food safety. It wasn't, you know, the welfare of the individuals that work for you, you know, and I think that is something that at Limewood and the Pigs is a huge focus for us. You know, Robin Hudson, our chairman, always says people product, then profit. So if you get the people right, you treat them right, you get that puzzle sorted, you get the products correct, then the profit will come. If you start putting profit before everything else, you can let, and I say profit, but I also think your own ego to want to achieve accolades or whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. The casualties by the wayside, are there to be seen.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously you have that light bulb moment which you've just shared with us. So let's talk about some of the things that since then that you've kind of changed and implemented. And one of them was how hospitality and kitchen rotas can be kind of improved for retention and well-being of staff. So talk us through that.
Well, I still hire. I've been hiring staff recently who've come on board who were still getting given their rotas on a Sunday night for Monday. How can you live a life like that? We at Limewood, I write my rotas at least 8 weeks, if not 3 months in advance, and allowing your team to plan their life. Flexible working is something that we're all doing now. We're all, and hospitality is a great environment for flexible work. But one thing I would say is people often say to me, well, how could, you don't know what the levels of business are next week. It's all right for you at a hotel and a big team and all the, whatever your challenges are. What I'd say when it comes to rota writing is engage with your team. So Christmas is coming up. We try to run a fair ship where we say, if you're working Christmas Day, you're going to be off Boxing Day. If you're off Boxing Day, you're obviously working Christmas Day. We try to give 3 people off, 3 days off over Christmas for everyone. But the point being is I engage with my team and say, look, who needs Christmas off? Not that I can get it right for everybody, not that, we've got so many people within our team that we can all afford to have Christmas off. That's not the case. But what I do have is an open dialogue with my team about the rota I'm writing, what days off are preferable. When you actually start getting under the skin of each individual, not everybody wants every weekend off. I got a young chef, Chef de Party, who works for me, whose wife's in hospitality, and he needs Tuesday, Wednesdays off. I've got another chef for me, one of my sous chefs, who has to have Wednesday, Thursdays off. Right? And when you start engaging with your team and start asking them, what days off do they need? You start to understand a little bit more about what's going on in their life. You start to understand where their priorities are, who's important to them in their life. And then all of a sudden you can start filling in the blocks, and yes, it doesn't always work out perfectly for everybody all the time. But one thing that it does breed is a real team bond. We always say when people are on holiday, okay, it's going to be a crap 2 weeks next because such and such a person on holiday, we've all got to pick up an extra shift to be able to get through. But conversely, when you're on holiday, we'll all do it for you, right? And I find that breeds great loyalty, camaraderie, and writing 3 months worth of rotas is a lot easier than you think. And then even when we came back from the second lockdown and we were all like, well, what if we get, a track and trace and, we don't know 1 week to the next how the rota is going to work because we don't know who's going to be here or who's going to be off. But what I did realize is once you put in that framework of those 3 months, when you start realizing where the gaps are, say, somebody's grandparents just died or somebody's gone off sick, it's actually a lot easier to backfill those holes with the rest of the team because your team are with you. They see that somebody his parents just died or somebody's ill, they need some time off, and they're happy to step up because they know you've got their back if that case comes around to you. And I think people having a set of rotas up that they can plan their life and say, look, in 2 weeks, we've got the weekend off, we can do this, or I haven't got any time off over the next couple of weeks, but next month I can do this, let's plan, let's buy a concert ticket, let's go and let's do that. The benefits for me personally, and even within that rota, I have people on different shifts. So some people are on straight shifts, some people are on 3.5 days on, 3.5 days off. And I always, again, engage with my team and say, what do you want to work? Do you want to work? Because we have 21 shifts a week to cover. All I need to know is, do you want lates? Do you want earlies? Some people are night owls. Some people are, I love getting up early. I'll get up early no matter what. I'll be up at 6 in the morning and I'll have stuff to do. Some people like to stay up till 4 in the morning playing Warzone on their Xbox or whatever and don't want to get up at 8 o'clock in the morning. But if you're not engaging with your team, you're not making the rota writing a collaborative thing, rather than just being dictatorial. When I first arrived at Limewood, we had a head chef that I worked with at the time, and on a Sunday night, I'm sat there and I said, well, what are we waiting for? What are we doing? He's like, I'm writing the rota for next week. So, what do you mean you're writing the rota for next week? So, well, everybody sat here, and anybody who's had a shit week, we're going to give them a shit rota. And you just think, that's no good for anybody, No. And also, even my own mental health, well-being. The reason I got to a 3-month rota was because we were losing so many staff at one point. And in order for me to be able to prove to the other team, to the rest of my team, that things would change, I had to put up these 3 months to say, look, this is how shit it's going to be for how long before things start to change. And when these new people join, because one thing that ended up happening is we were so tough on the standards to, and so ridiculously obsessed with minute details sometimes that it became an environment people didn't want to work in. So we had a high turnover of staff. And then when people were coming in for interviews, the people who were working were on, 90, 100-hour weeks. And we weren't the type of people wanted to work with. We were, bearing, the edge of being lunatics, finishing service at, 11:30, cleaning the kitchen down and going downstairs and starting the butchery at 1 in the morning till 3 in the morning. It's like, and then expecting, other people to step up or want to be a part of that. And that isn't a life, now I'm a little bit older and I've got, a wife and kids. That is not a lifestyle that seems appealing. I work my nuts off for 10 years and then I have wife and kids and I've still got to carry on working like this. But I started to realize that, this turnover of staff was down to me, my team, and the attitude I was fostering. And actually, when we put that 3-month rota up, just to say to ourselves, look, this is the 6 days a week we're going to have to work until it made me realize, actually, it's a lot easier writing a rota. I don't want to have to write a rota once a week. I don't know, I'm sure there's some head chefs, watching this now, or sous chefs. Writing a rota is a bit of a headache anyway. Who wants to be doing that every week? Once you've written a rota, it's done for 3 months. Apart from a few little tweaks, it's there, it's done. Your holiday management can be better. I enforce a holiday every 3 months. I don't want people working, I remember when I started in London, I did a year without a holiday, and you're working 90 hours a week for that, and you expect to be in a good state of mental well-being. I'm not so sure, it made sense then. It definitely doesn't make sense looking back on it now, but making sure that there's regular holiday breaks for people. Understanding that, hey, Jimmy, you've not had a holiday for 2 months. It's about time. And I always say to the guys, look, you've got 28 days if you've just started and 33 days if you've been loyal with us over a period of time. You need to be taking, 2 long holidays a year and 2 short holidays a year. And every 3 months, you either take a 5-day holiday or you take a 10-day holiday. And since I started doing that with the push that Robin wanted with the staff retention to come down, because statistically, Robin got somebody to come in and analyze the turnover rate within our business, and he got together all the head chefs, the hotel managers, the hotel directors, the restaurant managers, the sous chefs, and we had this big forum where we went through the statistics of what the true cost to a business is when you're turning over staff at the rate that we were at that point. And it's frightening. You're hemorrhaging money. You're the detriment to your business is a lot deeper than just somebody walking out in the middle of service. And I think the thing that used to happen was we didn't care if that person walked out. That person was nobody to us. The food was what we were talking about. This job was what we were talking about. But actually, now I think I don't want if people leave, I want them to leave with a handshake, with a book, with a thank you, with a glass of champagne, with a 2 years under your belt. With the majority of the leavers we've had recent times, we've been behind. I've been the one saying, where do you want to go? Let's pay for your stages. Let's pay for your stay in London while you go to X, Y, and Z. Let's see if we can knock on a door and get you your position where you can go and spend a couple of days in the kitchen. My consideration of the individual is like chalk and cheese to how it was when I first became a head chef.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds it obviously, because you've told us the journey from there to where you are now, so it sounds completely different. Chris, did you have anything to add on rotas, or I mean, I think Luke's pretty detailed. So I'm
in awe. Honestly, Luke and I have spoken before, and we're due to meet up and talk in more detail. But I genuinely, I think if anyone out there can take even just a proportion of what Luke's talking about now and learn from what Luke's it's so refreshing to hear someone who can put their hand up and say, yeah, do you know what? I fucked up and I'm a cause of some big issues because of that's what I knew. But it takes an even bigger individual to be able to turn up and say, actually, I've identified what the problem is. I've now fixed it and I was wrong. And this is how you can run you're one of the top 3 country hotels in the country. You work with Angela Hartnett. So for anyone out there that's thinking, oh, it's impossible, it means that I have to sacrifice, my food, or I have to sacrifice my business in order to be able to keep people happy. This here is proof that it's doable and it's possible. And I think, what you're speaking is absolute truth and gold, Luke. So thank you.
Thank you.
Another point, obviously, that you wanted to talk about was staff food. So why is this so important? Why was this one of the points that you wanted to discuss for this particular live?
Again, this is another thing that came out of Robin's forum, and I historically I'd always worked in restaurants, and Limewood was the first hotel I'd ever really worked at. And within our hotel, you have obviously housekeeping, you have a spa, you have chefs, you have front of house. You have gardening teams, all of these bits and pieces. They're very different in their expectations around food. But one thing that we all know is, when you eat food, it makes you feel good, right? So we were, and this is a common trait, from chefs, and I've absolutely been there myself as a chef de partie, even as a head chef, not giving 2 hoots about staff food. They should just be grateful with what they're given, right? But actually, the misery that reigned on our business, with some of the crap that we have served to our staff, is frankly embarrassing. As people who pride themselves on being professional cooks, it's shocking how poor the food is that we feel is acceptable to put up for our colleagues and fellow team members. And we've had to really strike a balance. The housekeepers want fish and chips, and and the chefs want an all-day English breakfast. The spa want vegan, gluten-free salads, all the rest of it. What we ended up trying to do was, rather than lumping one chef with the responsibility of cooking staff for 60 to 100 people a day, we divvied it up, and we said to ourselves, right, every section. So if you're on the meats, you're going to provide a dish. If you're on the larder, you're going to provide a dish. If you're on breakfast, you're going to provide a dish. If you're on the pasta, you're going to provide a dish. If you're on the pastry, you're going to provide a dish. Everybody's going to contribute something to the staff food, and it is going to be healthy. Okay, it's going to be relatively light, and it's going to be, each individual item that we present, it can be had on its own or as a combination of other bits and pieces. And then we got to thinking about, menu planning. But what we ended up doing was deciding that, why should we serve a lower quality of food to our staff compared to what we're serving to our guests? So I rewrote all the buffet menus that we did for the corporate businesses, and basically the staff food menu was the corporate buffet that we would serve to guests. So there was no wriggle room. So what you're serving is going to go to the guest. So whether it's going to, say we'd have a couscous salad with a lamb tagine, a cucumber salad, and a nice strawberries and cream or something like that. That would go to all the staff, it would go to the guests, and it reduced the pressure of mise en place. You know, it reduced the scapegoats of, because historically it's the breakfast chef who ends up getting lumped with the staff food responsibility. So not only does he do 70 to 100 covers on his own, he then got to cook, you know, something for all the staff before 12 o'clock, and it has to be of a standard. That guy or woman who was cooking breakfast was just absolutely, it was an unachievable sort of level. Now, with everybody having to contribute, it being served to the guests as well, there's no crap chicken that we're just going to serve to the staff. You know, we're not going to buy something cheap in, you know, and bulk it out for the sake of giving it to the staff. No, the food that we're going to give to the staff, we're going to happily stand by and offer it to the guests as well. And that made a big mental shift. And that helped the retention with other areas of our business. The spa people are a lot happier now. There is a lot more consideration to be taken on board with vegans, gluten-free. You know, we all know the dietary thing, and it's a boring subject now. You know, we've got to grow up, move beyond the, you know, why should we provide dietary stuff? We just need to smell the roses that are in front of us, get to the point where, you know, the kitchen understands its responsibility to the welfare and happiness of the other departments within the hotel, and stop going on about why is it the kitchen that always has to get on with it, did it? You know, and actually what we found with the staff food, it leveled up the kitchen to another degree, because people started really appreciating, you know, what the kitchen do. And it also gave us a benchmark for standards, because, you know, staff food staff food goes down to the staff canteen at 11 o'clock, come rain, come shine, come anything, it's there, you know. There's a vegan offering.
A question actually was that, is there a set time for staff food, and do all the staff eat together where they can, obviously? So,
well, you know, let's just put COVID aside for the time being, because that's, you know, that's been another spanner in the works, and we've had to do sort of boxed up individual food since then. But generally, yes, the hotel, well, the hotel breaks at different times. So, you know, housekeeping have a different pressure point to the gardening team, to the spa team, and to the front of house team. But, you know, we're still chefs, you know, we still eat on our feet at 11 o'clock in the morning, but at 5 o'clock in the evening, it's mandated that we all sit down together. And that gives me an opportunity when I'm sat with the team to just also pay some feedback to what I've observed during the day. So as I've grown up, I've stopped becoming the guy who, you know, gets in somebody's face when something goes wrong straight away. And it's like, okay, look, you know, we got through that. Then sit down at 5 o'clock and say, you know what, today I wasn't so happy with this. This should have been better. Tomorrow, let's remake that. I'll make it with you. Let's do that. Let's revise. Gives you an opportunity. And another thing that actually Neil Borthwick, who's Angela's husband, taught me about the eating staff food. It's a time when we're not going to have our bloody phones on, right? I don't care about TikTok and Twitter and Instagram. We're just going to put the bloody phones down, and we're going to break bread, have a conversation. And, you know, because I'm a big advocate of not having heavy food in the evening as well. You know, who wants to go into a 100 cover service with their belly full of, you know, egg and chips and other bits and pieces that's just going to, you know, bring you down? Let's just have something light and simple. It doesn't need to say it's not going to be delicious. You know, we often do a ramen, you know, which is a little bit of the bones that are left over turned into a stock with some noodles and a bit of green veg and a boiled egg. You know, people go crazy for that. It's so delicious. But what it does show you actually is how really limited some of the chefs are at being able to cook anything that's, you know, not dictated to them. So outside of the menu, if you said, just cook me something that you'd like, that's nice, that we could all sit down and eat together tonight. And it just, some of them just can't get it. And you think, Christ, you've taken on a career in cooking, right? And you find it difficult. It doesn't have to be complicated. You know, we'll often do spaghetti bianco, which is spaghetti, Parmesan cheese and parsley. Absolutely delicious. Doesn't take a lot of work, and someone will chuck a bit of bread, we'll have a green salad with it. Wonderful. But you cannot underestimate the importance of, living by your principles. If you're going to cook good food, you need to eat good food, right? And chefs really need to sort of see the effect that they can have on different departments. I've been through this on the wrong end. I have served some horrendous staff food, and I've seen the complaints that have been sent to our chairman, to the hotel director, and the photos that go with it of the crap that we put up and said is acceptable to eat. And I can tell you right now, if you were to just pick any of my chefs or anyone in the kitchen and ask, whether it's acceptable to serve bad staff food nowadays, they give you a very clear and direct answer, and I'm proud of that.
Yeah, it's not really something we've discussed much before this, is it, Chris? So I don't know if you've got anything to add, but it's really interesting. It's a completely different topic.
Yeah, well, I mean, the nutritional side or the staff food side, or both.
I think they fit together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what a lot of people don't know is that the majority of your serotonin is actually produced in your gut. It's over 90%. So when people talk about gut instinct, and there's a reason for that, it's because your gut's been around a lot longer and is a lot more adept at noticing situations than your brain is. It works quicker, and it also produces a lot more of that happy hormone. So, this is the thing about mental health and well-being, is the fact that it's not a case if you're depressed, you need to go and talk to someone, or you need to go out for a run. It's a combination of these factors. You summarized it beautifully. It's the cutting off social media and contact from the outside world with your phones, because it's not good for you. Encouraging people to sit down and communicate as a tribe. Eating something that's nutritionally well balanced and has a positive impact on your body fuel and energy going into next service. Using that as an opportunity not to critique people, but to give one-to-one feedback, to praise in public, and also to take this opportunity to build your team's resilience, so that in the next service they know that they've got you alongside them to help build them up. I mean, just that one sitting, you can do so much that will improve people's well-being, and you're creating this culture at the same time of an environment where actually you give a shit. And that in itself means that those people, if they have got problems, they know that they can come to you and talk because they know you've got their back. I think, you smashed it. It's a really, really important point.
And Luke, obviously, you told us about things that you've done and to make these improvements. But do you have any in mind going forward? Because I'm assuming you don't feel like you've finished yet. There's probably more that you want to do. So what have you got planned for you and the team to kind of keep these improvements going?
So I've been thinking about this. So. And this is quite personal from my own mental well-being. So during the lockdown, I after being used to being very busy, to not have that time, found myself sort of being in a strange place. So, and I found I've got back out on my bike, and I started riding again, and I started to really, another level of understanding of the benefits of exercise. Look, nobody wants to go and do exercise. Let's just accept that. There's very few people who feel totally motivated, but that's not the point. Okay, the point isn't being motivated to want to do an exercise. The point is trying to understand how the equation benefits you on the other side. So when you do the exercise, how you feel afterwards, and your own clarity and mental well-being far outweighs the sort of the feeling of not wanting to go and do it. And I think, so I started thinking about, right, how do we incentivize people to exercise? And I've had a couple of difficult conversations where, people are unhappy, with their own physical being, okay? They're not physically well. And it's a difficult conversation to say to someone, look, just ride your bike to work, you might not lose a load of weight, but it's not about losing weight. It's about this. It's about the space that's created up here. It's about the endorphins that are released. The post exercise moment is where the win is. How you feel at the end of that. So that's I think, well, there's the bike to work scheme. We can encourage these bits and pieces, but then some people don't live within a decent range of being able to ride to work. So are you then discriminating against them? And there needs to be some sort of incentive. It's a difficult one because part of me was thinking, well, why do we use the service charge? You get a higher chunk of the service charge, but how do you regulate someone's exercise? How do you? That's a difficult thing. But I think where I've sort of concluded is you just need to create a culture of it. A culture of I ride to work. I feel good. He doesn't ride to work, but he's running every day. He feels good. A few of us are chatting in the kitchen, how did you do on your weekend? I went and did this. I've done a bit of that. I've rode 25 miles. I got a breakfast chef, John, who's 50 this year, who's running a marathon. He's an incredibly committed guy to, and he's not like super fit or anything, but he's mentally really, in a really good place. And I think it's about creating a culture of mental well-being, and exercise is part of that picture. And I think when you encourage your teams to exercise, earlier this year, one of my chef de parties had a horrific time. I should say the end of last year. He'd split up with from his missus, and his life was in the dumps. And it's like you need to. What is it that you like? Is I used to love the gym, So can we do something? Can we point them in the direction of some of the benefits of working with our company, where you can get gym membership certain places for a discounted rate? It's putting all of this jigsaw together, But I think with the exercise thing, it's signposting them to what benefits they can get, i.e. the bike to work scheme. You can get discounted rates on bikes. It's about people joining a culture that makes them want to be part of it. And that means, exercising, feeling good, cooking good, looking good, all of those bits and pieces come together as one. It's the same as even things like ironing your jacket. I know it sounds ridiculous, but if you come in and all your jacket's crumpled and unironed, it says a little bit about where you are before you get to work. Why is your jacket not ironed? Oh, well, I've not had time to wash it. You just had your days off. Well, did it? And then you start to get to the point where you're realizing, they're not in a good place because they're not looking after themselves well enough, and there needs to be, and you can address it, and you can start to see the subtle signs, and then you can see people change and develop. I've seen it in my team where they come in with their blue-grey jackets because they haven't been told how to do their washing. So that, they wash all their colours together with their whites, and they wash the classic one is washing their black trousers with their white jackets, and they get grey jackets and they wonder why. But, so there's a little bit of, that we have to teach people, because, not everybody's been, comes out of home knowing, how to iron, how to cook, how to do these things. They're just looking at, chefing as being a job, as getting their foot on the ladder. But if you stop and observe your team, you can start to see, there's elements of shame and stuff that's tied into that. And if you can try and sort of demystify that, help them out, sort of, look, your jackets are bloody grey because you're washing them with your trousers, aren't you? Yeah, right, well, don't do that. Wash them separately, right? Stop, we've got staff accommodation, which is fair, it's about a 10-minute bike ride away from, so stop driving your car to work, right? Ride, right? And it doesn't always get through the first time, but, as everybody starts to do it, you start to realize it's also, you've got to try and save the planet as well. When driving a 10-minute car journey is not really the best way for us to move forward as a society. We need these little bits and pieces. So yeah, it's a difficult one, the exercise, but I think you're just going to get to a point where you're driving a culture, and then people join your business because of the culture.
Yeah. Well, and actually, before we finish, just quickly, someone has asked, and we have discussed this on a few other ones, so I'll just ask your point on it, is how are you going to, or how do you go about motivating your team coming back out of lockdowns? Obviously, second time round, how do you have any tips on kind of motivating the team to get back to where they need to be and ready to hit the ground running? Because as we discussed before we started this, you're pretty full already. So yeah, how do you do that?
I think part of it has been keeping in contact with them during lockdown. You know, we all met up on Monday just to sort of touch base, see how everybody is, you know, make sure, you know, just to sort of be in the space and to look around and go, right, you know, we're back next week, you know, and actually it gave me an opportunity because you pick up a sense on, you know, who needs your attention and who doesn't. Because the thing is with mental health, it's not a broad brush that you're using. It's actually a very fine little brush. And not everybody is in the same space mentally. So my advice is get everybody back, you know, give yourself, you know, we've got 2 days to get the produce in, to get mise on, which is a bit of energy anyway, because it's, you know, you've got stuff to do, but you haven't got service. So I think that's a really positive energy for the first 2 days, you know, when you're getting back and getting the produce back in the kitchen and doing some training. But really at that point, you want to be looking for the subtle signs, you know, whether it's the crease jackets, whether it's the weak hello, whether it's the not sitting down, whether, you know, at 5 o'clock when you're having dinner, are they sort of retracting within themselves? And then I think it's more doing your one-on-ones. And that's what I did the last time. Remember the first 2 weeks I came back, I did a one-on-one with everybody. And I think sometimes it's not just about how are you, it's how are you and yours? Is your mum all right? Is your brother okay? You know, we've got a young apprentice at Limewood, you know, his dad lost his job just before the lockdown. And when I sat down and talked with him, you realize he's been paying the mortgage at 18 years old for the last 3 months. You know, you know, so, but he's not going to have that conversation openly amongst everybody else at the kitchen table. You know, what I would say is, how do you motivate people? They should be relatively motivated to come back anyway. I think the mise en place is always a motivating a motivation, because that's why we do it. We like the energy, we like to come in, we've changed the menu. That's always exciting as well, because people have got something new to think about, you know, there's something new to tie themselves into. But as head chefs, sous chefs, or in any sort of position, just keep your eyes and ears out for the subtle changes in people. And if you are, you know, a junior member of the team, pull the chef aside and just say, I think there's something going on with X, Y, and Z, because even as head chef, you don't always, you don't have that relationship where you can pick up on the subtleties as quickly as some of the others in the kitchen. I got one of my junior sous chefs, he's brilliant at feeding up anything that's going on within the kitchen that I'm missing. And then just do your one-on-ones, sit people down and try to ask the questions of not just how are they, because they might be all right, but you know, their friends, their family, their loved ones might not be. And, you know, you haven't just got a responsibility to that one person chopping up your onions. You've got a responsibility to that one person trying to understand who they are, what they are, and what's going on in their life. And if you can crack that and be open with your team and have this feedback loop going on, you'll get great loyalty, you'll get great productivity. And you know, in those moments when you're really squeezed and you need people to step up, you'll be surprised at how many people take that step forward. And it's quite a humbling experience. I think, you know, it's not easy, mental health, you know, even for your own self, you know, because you're dealing with everybody else, but you're not here to be a counselor. You're here just to point people in the right direction. And that's why I think, you know, I'll just give a bit of kudos to Chris here and put some respect on him, because it can be overwhelming when you become a mental aid first aider, because you think initially that you're here to counsel people. That's not the case at all. You're here to just point people in the right direction to where they can find help. Some of that can come from me, some of that will come from Chris, some of that will come from other people, you know, but get to know your team beyond them just being, you know, a robot who cuts your onions for you and makes you look great. You know, you're not going to get anywhere like that. Trust me, I've done that, and I've suffered the consequences of it.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Luke, and thank you for being so honest as well. I think that's really, really good part of it to, like Chris said, to kind of admit that you were wrong and what you've done to kind of rectify that, which I think is really good for everyone to hear. I am going to have to bring this to a close, but next week is our final discussion in this particular series, and we'll be joined by Mark Reynolds, the executive chef at Tottenham. He'll be discussing how to recognise when team members are struggling, particularly in large teams, as he has 225 chefs to look after on a match day, which is pretty massive. So yeah, that's our finishing next week. We'll see you all next Wednesday, 4:45 p.m. Thank you again, Luke. Thank you, Chris, and see you next week.
Ciao.
Thank you.